In this session of the Learning Lounge, we'll look at the two main forms used to manage information about your vendors. We'll start with the vendors form, then cover the vendor products form. The vendors form is where you enter the basic information about your vendor, such as the vendor name, address, phone number, website, etc. This is a standard single record form, where you can scroll through all the vendors, or use the fast search and filter features to load just a single vendor or a subset of vendors. Most of the fields on this form are self-explanatory, but a few of them merit special mention. The name and phone number of your primary contact for the vendor should go in the contact field and phone number field, respectively. If you have multiple contacts for the vendor, click the Contacts button to open the Contacts form, where each contact can be registered. You can enter a value in the vendor terms field, but currently, Dragonfly does not use this value in any of its processes or calculations. If you want to place orders to the vendor using a spreadsheet, you can define one or more data layouts for the data that you will be sending to the vendor. This allows you to customize which data is exported, the order of the columns, and the column headers, for each vendor. Watch the lesson on data layouts for more information on creating these export layouts. If you have created one or more export layouts for the current vendor, you can select the primary layout from the Export Layout drop-down list. This layout will be used when you submit an order to the vendor via email from the Orders form. When you receive a shipment from a vendor in response to an order you have submitted, the shipment may not include all the ordered products. This creates a backorder situation. Some vendors allow back orders, and they will send the missing products in another shipment. Other vendors may not allow back orders, so that if the product is not in the shipment, they will not be sending it. If the current vendor allows back orders, check the back orders checkbox. This vendor property will determine what Dragonfly will do when a partial shipment is received. The second half of the vendor registration process is handled on the vendor products form. You can go to that form from the navigator or by clicking the vendor products button on the vendors form. Some of the products you sell in your store could be purchased from more than one vendor. That means that some of the product attributes like MSRP, cost and part number can vary from one vendor to the next. As a result, these variable attributes need to be stored separately from the main set of product data. Now we'll walk through the process of creating this vendor-specific product data. The vendor products form is a combination browse grid and single record editor. The grid at the top lists the products and their vendor-specific attributes. This grid allows you to browse through the data as well as edit the data. But because this table is so wide, it is sometimes easier to view one record at a time in a more convenient editing area. The editing section at the bottom of the form provides this single record interface. Click on any row in the grid, and the selected vendor product record will be displayed in the lower section for editing. You can edit the values in the grid or the editor. By default, when the form opens, it lists all the vendor product records for all your vendors. To make the process more manageable, you can select a single vendor from the Select Vendor drop-down, and the grid will only show the products from the selected vendor. You can also use the form's searching and filtering tools to limit the set of records you are viewing. If you are looking for all vendors for a specific product, you could search for that product instead. In the editing area, the vendor name and product receipt description are shown, but these are not editable on this form. The vendor part number is the number specifically assigned to the product by the selected vendor, so it may vary from one vendor to the next. The current cost and MSRP for the selected vendor should also be entered. The min order quantity defines the minimum number of units that you can order from the vendor. When you place an order, the program will check to make sure you don't try to order fewer units than this. Some products are sold in boxes or other lots of multiple units. For these products, enter the number of units per box in the sellable units field. For fabrics, you can enter the number of yards on a bolt in this field. If you need to add more existing products for a vendor, click the Add Products button. This will bring up a list of all registered products. Search or filter the pop-up list to find the products you want to assign to the currently selected vendor, then select the products you want to add, then click Apply to add the selected products to the vendor. They will be added at the bottom of the grid. It should be noted that if you are adding a new product for a vendor, that product must be registered on the products form before it can be assigned to a vendor. If you have a need to make a change to a large number of vendor products, you can use the bulk editing feature. Watch the lesson on bulk editing data for details. This feature comes in handy if the vendor announces a price increase on all their products. Finally, as a convenience, you can click the Contacts button to open the Contacts form. This form will show you the contact names and phone numbers for all the people you have registered as contacts for the currently selected vendor. We've been discussing adding products to vendors, but you can also assign vendors to products. The Product Definitions form allows you to select one or more vendors for the selected product, and assign some of the vendor product attributes as well. Watch the lesson on managing products for more information.